Welcome back to The Truth Travels. In today's video, we will take a long journey through one of the most fascinating and controversial lives in modern politics, the rise of Vladimir Putin. This is the story of how a boy born in Leningrad, raised in a communal apartment, grew into a man who would become a KGB agent and then rise to lead Russia, the world's largest country. His story is about power, secrecy, and survival. It's about how history shaped him and how he, in turn, reshaped history. So make yourself comfortable, because this is not a short story. This is the full story of Vladimir Putin's rise, told from the beginning, in detail. And as always, if you enjoy the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to The Truth Travels. Let's begin. Childhood and early life. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in the city of Leningrad, which today we know as St. Petersburg. His family lived in harsh conditions. His parents, Maria and Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin, had already suffered through the horrors of World War II. His father was injured in combat, and his mother nearly died of starvation during the siege of Leningrad, one of the darkest chapters in Russian history. Putin grew up in a communal apartment building. Imagine dozens of families living in the same building, often sharing kitchens and bathrooms. Privacy was rare, and resources were limited. As a boy, Putin was described as restless, small, and sometimes mischievous. He was not an outstanding student at first, but he had a sharp mind and a determined spirit. He developed an early love for martial arts. As a teenager, he took up judo and sambo, and he trained relentlessly. These sports were not just about physical strength, they were about discipline, patience, and strategy, qualities that would later define his political style. In fact, even as president, Putin has often spoken of how judo taught him how to anticipate his opponent's moves and use their strength against them. The dream of the KGB. From an early age, Putin was fascinated by Soviet intelligence. He once described walking into a local KGB office as a teenager, asking how he could join. The officers told him that he needed a university degree first, preferably in law. He took this advice seriously. Putin enrolled at Leningrad State University, where he studied law. There, he wrote a thesis on international law, but he also developed connections with professors and officials who noticed his ambition. In 1975, immediately after graduation, he was recruited by the KGB, the powerful Soviet secret police and intelligence agency. For many in the Soviet Union, working for the KGB was considered the height of patriotism and prestige. It was a secretive world filled with loyalty, surveillance, and discipline. Putin's early career involved training and routine intelligence work. Eventually, he was posted abroad, Dresden and the fall of the Berlin Wall. One of the most important periods of Putin's life was spent in Dresden, East Germany, during the 1980s. He was stationed there as a KGB officer, officially working out of the Soviet consulate, but in reality, running intelligence operations. His job was not the glamorous life of a spy movie. It involved paperwork, cultivating contacts, and managing local informants. But the world was changing quickly. The Cold War was beginning to collapse, and the Eastern Bloc was weakening. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Crowds of East Germans protested outside the KGB building where Putin was working. He later recalled the fear and helplessness of that night. He asked Moscow for instructions, but no orders came. The Soviet Union, once a mighty superpower, was silent. This moment left a deep mark on Putin. He saw the Soviet Union collapse not because of a war, but because of weakness and disorganization. He would later say that the fall of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. Return to Russia and entering politics. After the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, Putin resigned from the KGB and returned to St. Petersburg. Like many former KGB officers, he faced uncertainty, but Putin was skilled at adapting. He joined the team of Anatoly Sobchak, the reformist mayor of St. Petersburg. Sobchak was a liberal, a professor of law, and a politician who believed in democracy and economic reform. He valued Putin's loyalty and efficiency. Putin became his deputy, handling foreign relations and economic projects. During this time, Putin learned how city politics worked, how deals were made, and how power operated in the new Russia. When Sobchak lost re-election in 1996, Putin's career might have ended, but instead, it shifted to Moscow. He was invited to join the presidential administration under Boris Yeltsin, Russia's first post-Soviet president. Rise through the Kremlin. In Moscow, Putin quickly gained a reputation as a man who was loyal, quiet, and effective. He was not flashy, he did not draw attention to himself, and he did not appear ambitious. These qualities made him trustworthy in the eyes of those in power. By 1998, he was appointed head of the Federal Security Service, FSB, the successor to the KGB. This position gave him significant influence over the country's security apparatus. A year later, in 1999, Yeltsin named him prime minister. At the time, very few Russians knew who Putin was. But Boris Yeltsin was struggling. His presidency was plagued by economic collapse, corruption, and declining health. The Russian people were tired of instability, and Yeltsin himself was looking for a successor who would protect him and his family from prosecution after he stepped down. Putin fit the role perfectly. On December 31, 1999, Yeltsin resigned unexpectedly, and Vladimir Putin became the acting president of Russia. It was a sudden and dramatic rise. Just months later, in March 2000, Putin won the presidential election. Early presidency and consolidation of power. From the very beginning, Putin projected strength. His first major test was the war in Chechnya, a region in southern Russia that had declared independence. Putin launched a brutal military campaign to reassert control. The campaign was harsh, with heavy civilian casualties, but it boosted his image as a strong leader who would restore Russia's authority. At the same time, Putin began consolidating power at home. He restricted the power of oligarchs, the wealthy businessmen who had grown rich during the chaos of the 1990s. Some were forced into exile, while others pledged loyalty to the Kremlin. Independent media outlets were brought under state control. Regional governors lost much of their autonomy. Step by step, Putin created a centralized system where power flowed directly to him. The economy also began to improve, largely due to rising global oil and gas prices. For many ordinary Russians, the 2000s felt like a period of recovery and stability compared to the wild, unstable 1990s. This stability made Putin popular. Putin's image and international stage. Putin carefully cultivated an image of strength. He was often shown practicing martial arts, riding horses, fishing, or diving into icy waters. These public stunts were meant to display toughness, vigor, and masculinity. Russians, who respected discipline and strength, admired this persona. On the international stage, Putin positioned Russia as an independent power, not a follower of the West. He opposed NATO expansion, criticized American interventions abroad, and sought to reassert Russian influence in its neighboring countries. As the years went on, Putin extended his rule, alternating between the roles of president and prime minister, and eventually changing the constitution to stay in power longer. Legacy and controversy. Today, Putin is one of the most recognized leaders in the world. His legacy is deeply divided. Supporters credit him with restoring stability, pride, and strength to Russia. They say he brought order after the chaos of the 1990s and gave Russians a sense of dignity. Critics argue that he has built an authoritarian system, silenced opposition, restricted freedoms, and ruled through fear and control. Either way, Putin's rise from a boy in Leningrad to a KGB agent in Dresden, and then to the Kremlin, is one of the most remarkable political journeys of our time. And that is the full story of Vladimir Putin's rise to power from KGB agent to the president of Russia. His life has been shaped by history, by conflict, and by his own determination to control his destiny. Whether you see him as a strong leader or as an authoritarian, his impact on the world is undeniable. If you found this story fascinating, please take a moment to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to The Truth Travels for more deep dives into the lives of world leaders and the forces that shape our world. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.